polite pets. We all would like to have a polite pet, but the AVA, the Australian Veterinary Association, is actually doing something about it, and the President is going to tell me exactly what it is you are doing about encouraging people to have polite pets.
We have established a Polite Pets Month, which is to highlight the training and the education requirements to have a pet like that. And it's also to highlight the issues of mental disease in dogs, because some of the dogs that we used to believe that were misbehaving and naughty and so forth have often got underlying learning difficulties and often underlying anxiety disorders. So that's part of what we're trying to do. And we're also trying to get the message out there that we can control these pets and guide them using very humane, scientifically based, positive methods. So that's what we're trying to do.
Now, I'm absolutely intrigued. I haven't heard about dogs having mental issues, and we tend to giggle when we hear that, when we shouldn't really, because it's not good when we hear kids have mental problems and that, and there's certainly a lot of argument about whether kids have ADHD. I mean, are you suggesting perhaps our dogs might have something like that, the canine equivalent?
Well, the reality is their brain is a simpler version of ours, and literally anything that we could suffer from, they could suffer from. We certainly have not identified as many psychological and psychiatric conditions in dogs as in humans, but we certainly have identified anxieties, fears, phobias, and it's normal to be anxious or fearful in particular situations, but an anxiety disorder is a very different thing. So it's often to do with the intensity of it and the frequency of it. And if you think about it, being anxious in a situation where you're going to talk on stage or you've heard a lion roar in the jungle, that's all normal, but it passes. The problem with the puppies and the kittens that have got the anxiety disorders is it doesn't pass. And they may be comfortable in one or two situations at home, but they are anxious most of their lives. And that's a real welfare issue for some of these pets.
How do you deal with it, or how should people deal with it?
If they think their pet is anxious, they most probably should go and have it checked by the veterinarian, because there are many underlying medical conditions that can cause problems. So if the dog is irritable from a liver disease, or it's painful from a back condition or whatever, that will raise anxiety by itself. And you'll never control the anxieties until you get the medical conditions under control. Once you've got those under control, if the anxiety doesn't resolve, the veterinarian would most probably either refer you to a veterinary behaviourist or a veterinary behavioural specialist for them to work the animal up thoroughly and then come up with a treatment plan. They're quite comprehensive, they're quite detailed, but they systematically go through setting up the environment so that the animal can cope, then instituting behavioural modification, and where necessary, medication to help the animals learn the best ways to cope in their environments.
Well, I hope somehow we can organise to be able to see some sort of situation like that, so we can actually illustrate for our viewers, I guess, exactly what's happening. In the wider scheme, of course, those that are perhaps not suffering an illness but are perhaps just naughty, what does the AVA recommend for them to become polite pets?
Okay. I don't actually think they can be naughty until you teach them what they're meant to do. So most naughty behaviour is really in our mind. We think the dog should do A and we haven't taught it to do it. Using positive techniques, it's very simple and very easy. Well, maybe not easy, but very simple to teach these dogs and cats to do precisely what we require of them. If we don't, well, guess what? They're going to be dogs. They're going to bark and jump and howl. They're going to be cats and scratch and do all of those sorts of things. So they are, after all, just dogs and cats, as much as we love them.
We do love them. Once our dogs and cats have mastered the basics, we can ask them to do a few more complicated things, and the AVA is actually looking ahead to next year to have a giant sit-in. Tell me about that.
We think it's a great opportunity to get lots of people together with their pets and possibly break a record, which might be a little bit of fun, But from the AVA's point of view, the most important thing is that the dogs are coping well. So we certainly don't want to turn the world record of the dog sitting into the world record dog fight. So, and we are really trying to highlight how important it is for dogs to be able to sit calmly and relaxed in the general public. So we're looking at having that world record attempt and have dogs working up to it. We've got the Delta professional dog trainers on board, and we've got the Delta Society and a few other training organisations involved, and we are going to be trying to get the dogs to the point that they can deal with the sit and wait in a relaxed fashion, so they're not having to be forced into that position.
Sounds good. And you've got quite a few veterinarians involved. Is that how people sort of register for this or learn?
We are going to have online registration, and also the local veterinarian will be able to direct you either in the way that you need to train your pet to participate, or to direct you to a trainer who would be in that position.
Fantastic. Well, my vote goes for roast chicken. It works for my dogs anyway.
You might have all the dogs following you around.
Don't know about that. I'm not so much a Pied Piper. Andrew, thank you very much for talking with us, and I hope we can get a chance to do a follow-up and see how people are going with their progress.
Thank you very much for having me.